What's up, guys? This is Cream, and you're checking out the next episode of Get Down Wit It. Today we have a very special guest, the one and only Mr. Fear the Beard himself, DJ Dramos, Z100, Breakfast Club. You know where to find them. So check this episode out. We talk about a very wide-ranging array of topics. You guys are gonna love it. Get down with it. Let's go.
What are we doing, man?
Man, we're back for Get Down Wit It. We had planned shooting this, what, March?
Yeah, I think so.
I think we planned to shoot this in March, and then obviously everything went down, so we said, you know, what else can we be doing right now? And I think this is a great opportunity for us to come shoot in a rooftop situation where we're not around a lot of people. And yeah, we're gonna talk to Dramos, and I've been looking forward to the Dramos talk since we, you know, decided we were gonna do this.
Yeah.
I think our talk's gonna be real interesting and probably different than some of the past ones. I really wanna focus on his processes and the things that he does that makes him successful, not necessarily his DJ or artist journey, which is kind of more along the lines of what we talked about with some of the other guests. And Dramos is that dude, man. He's one of the hardest working guys I know and super successful, so
Yeah.
pumped.
My colleague Burren actually did the tour.
Yo! What up? Yeah, it's great.
What's up, man?
What's going on? I miss you.
Dude, I know. It's been a minute.
It has.
What up?
How we doing?
Shit. As good as you can be, man. How you been? Yeah, I've been kind of just operating in like the headspace of how do I create that I'm never going to go back to DJing, basically. Like, how do I create income that I'm not going to be going back to doing that?
Same.
And then even, you know, to be honest, I don't mind working from home. I'm like, how do I create a career of just being able to stay at home, you know?
It's great.
Yeah.
Dude, I go to bed by like 1:30. I'm up by 8:30. Like, feeling great.
Like it's nice. I mean, it's
4 in the morning nights.
yeah, I don't miss it, man. I don't miss that. Like I like having my weekends now, man. I'm chilling. So that hasn't been too bad. I mean, you get bored obviously to a degree, but
Friday
you know.
nights, sometimes I'll be like, man, like,
yeah.
normally I'd be getting ready to go to work, and I'm like, this is
Right.
kind of, I got nothing going on. Like, what am I gonna do right now?
I think Saturday I feel it more. I'm like dead on Friday, so I like sleep all day. I'm
Yeah.
like, you know, at night. But yeah, for Saturdays I feel a little bit. But yeah, it is weird. It is weird to not be at DJs right now. Like I hate when like the flyer shows up on like your
I know.
Instagram like 2 years ago.
It's like
whatever.
FOMO to the max.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting in times like this. I feel like when people are forced to be super creative and think outside of the box, that's when like the Ubers of the world and like the right, like I was looking at the list of all the companies that were made during the last recession, and it was like, I forget, like WeWork, Uber,
Mm-hmm.
I forget what some of the other ones were, but like massive, super successful companies.
Yeah, I mean, it's all created out of necessity, you know, so it's like, even, I mean, fucking Korg, I think it's Korg, is it Korg or is it, who is it makes it, Roland? Those little mixers for the iPhone
Yeah.
or whatever that were probably like the dumbest thing ever, and now they're sold out everywhere,
Yeah.
you know? So like little shit
The
like
little
that.
travel ones, right?
Yeah.
Those things are kind of cool.
They're dope, and that's how like a lot of like the bigger DJs were streaming on like Instagram and stuff like that, was like that, and the sound quality was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were like sold. I remember I almost had bought one, and then I like slept on it for a day, and it was sold out everywhere, and I couldn't get it anymore. But like all that kind of shit, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to kind of see what gets developed. I mean, even with just like at home recording and filming and things like that, you know.
Dramos, what's up, man?
What
How
up?
you doing?
Oh man, as good as we can be, right? I'm happy out of the house right now.
We had a you know, a 3-month pause on when we were supposed to record this, but we made it.
We're here. We're doing it.
So we were talking a lot about like having to adapt and change what we're doing right now and figuring out on the fly.
Yeah.
And I think you're a really good example of someone who's done that forever, because you've done so many different things, and you've kind of worn a lot of different hats. So just tell us kind of the different things that you've done, where you started, how you met us, and how we started hanging out and working together, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like pre-DJing, my first foray into the music business was playing in bands. So I used to do that and tour around the country and very DIY stuff when it came to the touring, and then kind of once that started ending, you know, I wanted to transition into something else musically, and DJing was always something I kind of dabbled in but never really, you know, dove into. And once, you know, the band stuff ended, I was like, cool, now's the time to do it. I was working at Guitar Center at the time. I picked up some gear and I met some people that taught me stuff, and then, you know, fast forward a few years later in the clubs, I ended up meeting you guys, and we've kind of just been on this whole ride the last few years, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we literally met each other from DJing. I never really remember how I meet anybody. It's weird. The relationship just kind of goes where you meet somebody, you click, and you kind of go from there. But
yeah, I think Gary was like the bridge.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember how you and I met the first time either, to be honest with you. I knew Gary, and then I knew of you from Gary, and it was probably vice versa.
Yeah, so probably Sona 13 March.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's what like the meeting ground was.
So you, me and Gary kind of are what started the whole Get Down thing. What it spawned from, basically, because we met each other and we were helping each other out as far as booking each other out at different venues where we had some booking power.
Yeah.
And I think we all realized pretty quickly that us helping each other allowed us to fill our schedules a lot easier. And that's kind of what Get Down is all about, and that's where it all spawned from. So, I mean, it's cool to think back and think that that's what it came from, you know?
It's crazy.
I know.
Because I don't think any one of us at that time like really thought much of it. Right? It was just kind of like trading gigs and like helping each other out, and that was about it.
But I think that plays into what started out as just a friendship and friends helping each other, and like turning that into an actual business.
Yeah.
And I think you've done that with all the different things that you do. So just tell us, like, what makes you like that? Like, where does your brain go, and how does you get from point A to point B?
I mean, I think for me, and it's taken me years to be able to like sum it up into a mission statement, but I live my life by like the phrase of, it doesn't have to be lonely at the top. And to me, that's like how I just like let that guide my life. So like, to me, it's no fun if I'm like super successful, I'm standing there by myself, you know what I mean? So why not bring friends along for the journey? And I just think also it's always been in my nature that it's like, if I'm at a party or I'm somewhere, I want to make sure everybody that is with me is having fun, you know what I mean? And to me, that's the same thing when it comes to business and all these different things. It's like, you know, at the end of the day, it's cool to be that person who's up there on the platform that everybody's looking up at, but you know, it's you know, a lot more fun if you're able to help other people out and get them to where they want to be as well. I think that's probably more rewarding than actually just standing up there yourself.
It's super rewarding, and I honestly think that helping other people will help you grow so much faster. And for us, we helped each other early on. Now we're helping other younger DJs, and they're growing rapidly too. And it's great for us to see that and see those guys get to places that we wanted to get to when we were their age, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, what's interesting, I think, is also people have this misconception that you have to be maybe bigger than somebody else to be able to help them, and it's not that case at all. You know, there have been people who maybe on paper haven't done as much as I have, but still have helped me out tremendously, and I've tried to pay them back in different ways. And that's kind of, you know, we all help each other get to where we want to be a lot quicker if we're all just kind of working in that way and not seeing each other as competition, but seeing each other as allies who can help, you know, even just push each other and motivate each other to be better versions of ourselves, you know?
No, absolutely. And I think working together was something that, one of the reasons why it works for us is because our market was really not like that, right? It was very segregated. It was like, you either work with us or you're against us kind of thing. And I know I always hated that so much.
No, same here. That was one of the things when it came to DJing that I really despised, because you still got it in like the band community, but because that community was such a DIY community where like if I would have to hit up a band in Indiana and be like, hey, we're trying to come through in February, you think you can start set up a show for us? And I would do the same thing if they were coming to Jersey, you know? So that kind of was instilled in my head, and when I got to DJing, I was like, whoa, this is like totally different. Like people aren't doing that for each other, you know? So like to me, I was like, that sucks, and I want to try to be a part of that change. And you guys, like, I recognize those same values in you guys when we all started kind of meeting up and linking up. So that's why I think it all just kind of clicked.
So whenever I talk to people about you, I always tell them that you're the hardest working man in showbiz, because, I mean, like, tell people what a sample schedule of like when we were really working hard and like nightlife was open, what your day looked like.
Man, so it starts at like 3 a.m. I wake up at 3 a.m. Get up, I do like my little meditation, my breakfast, my little morning routine. I get to work by 5 a.m. I'm one of the producers of the Breakfast Club. So that's a very early morning show. So I'm there at 5 a.m. Usually get out of there around like 12 noon. I'll head home and kind of just like decompress for about an hour, and then like hit the emails, or you hit, you know, whatever projects it is that you're working on, and that kind of will take me throughout my day until I go to bed, basically. And then, you know, the weekends, every weekend it'd be DJing, Fridays, Saturdays. At one point I was doing radio in Connecticut while doing all this as well, so I would do the Breakfast Club, leave there at 1, go home, eat lunch, then drive to Connecticut and be on the radio from 3 to 7, go back home. Some nights go straight to the radio station, sleep there for like an hour, then work from midnight to 6 a.m. It was just, so it's always like this very random, crazy kind of schedule, and I think also it just works for me though. I'm like a glutton for punishment. I'll cut something out and then I'll just add something else in its place. It's just like, I just think that's the way my brain works. It's just like constantly being busy, you know?
So is that what it is? You just want to constantly be busy, or what kind of has made you be so driven and hardworking? Is there something that you can think of, or was it just?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like the biggest thing, there's a few things, but the first thing I'd say is being hardworking is the one thing I can control. You know, I can't control if somebody's more talented than me. I can't control if they were born into a better situation than me, but I can control my work ethic, you know? And I think that goes a very long way. I've learned that, you know, when people start seeing that, they'll kind of cut you some slack for maybe what you lack in experience or what you might lack in natural abilities. And also I think I recognize that if I'm gonna go against the grain and not have the traditional sort of 9-to-5 lifestyle, that I'm gonna have to work twice as hard, you know, and I think also seeing somebody like my dad, who super hardworking but hated his job, you know, so like that was super motivating to me throughout my entire life. Like I never want to be that dude who was putting in 40 hours a week and driving and sitting in traffic, you know, there and on the way back to a job I hated. So I knew that, like, you know, for me to be able to make it happen, being born into zero connections and not in a family that had a lot of money, I was gonna have to work twice as hard as everybody else. So I think the combination of those two things has always kind of stuck with me.
Yeah, I tend to agree, you know, coming from, you know, a more humble background where both my parents were teachers too. So it was like anything that I wanted, I had to generally work for. Yeah. And I guess for me, it came out of necessity that you had to work for what you got. And then when I quit my job and I started doing DJing and nightlife full time, when you are putting in the effort and you're working hard, and let's say there's a project that you're working on and you plan out your time for a month and you do it and it's successful, like that makes me want to work just as hard, if not more, on the next project. And I think all those small wins add up over time, and like it just makes you feel successful, and it just makes you feel good on the inside, right? And it just reinforces the fact that you need to keep working hard like that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, when you do bust your ass in that way and it does actually pan out, man, there's no greater feeling than that, you know? So I think you're always trying to recreate that. You're always trying to one up it, you know? And I think once you start seeing little levels of success, it's like, that's also another driver where it's like, damn, like if I now times 10 the amount of effort I put into it, what could happen? And all that kind of stuff, you just keep kind of trying to top yourself, I guess, at the end of the day, and grow when it comes to that.
Right. And no one sees what happens behind the scenes. They just see the outcome. They don't see you waking up at 3 in the morning and sleeping on couches in the radio station, and they don't see us, all the work that goes into a production like this. So yeah, like you see the shiny end result, but you don't see the work that goes in, and I kind of like that. I know that I have to work super hard, and I know how hard I worked or how hard you worked, but like most people don't.
I mean, most people just kind of like they just see the end product, you know, they see the result. And you know, that it is what it is, like, and I guess at the end of the day, you know, it's what can you do when it comes to that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, knowing the amount of like work you put into it, I think when we have these kinds of conversations, and I was just like, you know, flipping through my Instagram, like going way back, like recently, just as like, I guess, I don't know, I was feeling nostalgic. And I was just like, damn, man, I can't believe like here I am now, and that's where I was then, and I was like dreaming about, you know, being able to do some of the things I'm doing now. It's just, it's crazy, man. It's a beautiful thing, and like, it sucks sometimes when you're busting your ass like that and you're not seeing the results you want. But yeah, it does make it that much sweeter when you can kind of look back and be like, damn, I come a long way.
It is nice to look back, because then you realize how far you really have come, and that motivates you to get to the next level too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned meditation earlier. It's something that I started doing this year religiously. And I don't know if it has actually made a change, but I feel like it has made a change in me. So talk to me about why you started doing that and how it helps you.
I mean, I think to deal with a lot of like just anxiety, you know, I think doing this type of work in this industry will bring on a level of anxiety, and I think I've probably suffered with it probably even before that. But it's just a good way to center yourself, especially I feel like in the morning, man, to like start off from just a very relaxed place and like it also, you know, I read a lot of books. I know you do the same thing. Talking about setting your day with an intention. And when you meditate, you allow yourself to kind of like set the tone for your day. You know, I'm not like, you know, that's why I don't have to be at work until 5 a.m. My commute is literally, 15 minutes, but I wake up at 3 a.m. because I want to set my intention for my day. You know what I mean? I don't want to wake up rushing and then I get to work and I'm anxious and you know, I want to make sure that I set it from a good place. And I think meditation allows you to just do that. Allows you to like really start your day and like from a grounded and focused kind of place.
I agree with you. I like to do it in the very first thing I do.
Yeah.
I wake up and do that, and then I allow myself to do coffee or read or whatever I'm going to do. But I agree with you. It opens up your mind and puts you in a place of just being focused on what you need to accomplish for the day. And I'll catch myself thinking about some of the things I need to do, and I try to like swat. I say to myself, like, swat that away, swat it out of your mind. And when I'm done with that, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's a really good feeling.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I love that. I love doing it in the morning. And then I've also noticed if I have to make like a hard decision, something I'm unsure of, like if I'm like late at night, I might just sit there and like meditate and allow myself to really just like flush out all the thoughts that, you know, that like any doubt I have about something, why am I, you know, for it, why am I against it, and really like allow myself to kind of process what it is that I'm what is weighing on me and, you know, the decision I want to make.
I've actually done it a few times in the Uber on the way to a gig.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like a Friday and I had a really long day already with other business stuff. And I'm like, all right, I need to reset myself, get my mind in the right place to go and like rock this party.
Yeah.
And I feel like that works really well for me too.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. Yeah, it's like, because it just like, it's a reset, man. I think that's the best way to put it. It really is like just a reset, and allows you to be super present, which is like the most important thing. Like that's the hardest thing as like a human being, is to like just be present in what's going on. And meditation really like gives you the opportunity to do so.
So meditation is part of your morning routine. You had mentioned routines earlier. I rely on my routines so much. To me, it's like it takes decision making out of your day. I know what I'm doing when I wake up. I know what I'm doing before I go to bed, and it's just like filling those work hours in the middle of the day. So, what's your morning routine like? What are some of the things that you kind of rely on and have to do?
So it's meditation before anything else. Like I don't look at my phone or anything like that. And then after I meditate, I allow myself to kind of go through my phone and see if there's any like emergency text or anything I might have missed, or calls or emails. And then while I like make breakfast, I'll listen to like a positive podcast, like a motivational podcast, or like a book that is like, just puts me in a positive space. And I'll listen to that while I'm like eating breakfast in the morning or whatever the case would be. And then when I'm done with that, I'll try and usually, like, if I have some time, I'll try and knock out maybe something that, you know, is pressing as far as my own personal stuff, not like radio station stuff, not anything else. If I have like a project I'm like super excited about or working on, I'll kind of try to maybe knock out a couple of things when it comes to that, and then, you know, hop in the shower and get ready for work. So pretty simple.
Yeah. It is nice though, like I said, like you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, and at that point too, it's like, at that point I feel like I've grounded myself, I've done something for myself in like the way of I've already accomplished something, I've checked something off my to-do list for the day probably at that point before I even gotten into the office basically, you know, so like I'm walking into work feeling like, damn, I just crushed like the day already, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a good feeling.
So, all right, so you have routines. I mean, talk to us about goals and how you go around like goal setting and what your process is on that.
So I actually did like this app with working with like a life coach, and she really helped me kind of formulate like how I wanted to do things. So the formula I got from that was setting my 1-year goals and then my 5-year goals, and then breaking down my 1-year goal into 3, 6 months, and then the full year goals. So what I would do with that is just like, you know, once I made my list of like anything comes to mind basically that you want, and then I would identify, is this a 5-year goal, is this a 1-year goal? Once I did that, I would then break them down again and be like, okay, now the 1-year goals, which one of these is like I could do in 3 months, which one of these can I realistically do in 6 months, which can I do is like a year-long goal, and then breaking it all down into those categories. Same thing with the 5 years, and then once you have all that stuff broken down, you just keep breaking it down more and more and more, basically until you can't get any, you know, until it eventually just becomes like send an email to this person. You know what I mean? And like, but that, like, that's what you need to do, because when you have goals, when you have big goals, and when you're trying to create a path for yourself outside of like the structure of a normal 9-to-5 job, it can become daunting because you can't see the steps in front of you. So like when you break all that stuff down, it's like, wow, I'm only, you know, 25 maybe steps away from like hitting that 6-month goal. Like, it's not that crazy. Okay, send that email, check. Wow, I just moved up the ladder a little bit. And like, that really helps you like tackle and really attack the things you want to do, you know?
I think that's actually, I haven't really thought about it that way. I've always thought about it like, all right, let me think about my 1-year goal, and then I'll work my way up. But I think working your way the other way makes a lot of sense. because you start at the bigger picture, and then you figure
Right.
out like on a day-to-day basis what you need to do to get to that point. So
Yeah.
that's interesting.
I think also because when you think in terms of 5, you're also now allowing your short-term goals to like be things that add up to getting to that gigantic goal that you have as well. You know.
Yeah.
So that's that's the way I look at it.
All right, so we talked about some of the ways that you prepare for success and you set your goals. Is there a failure or a couple failures that you can think of that really stand out and have taught you something?
There's a million, but I think the biggest one that always sticks into my mind, that like I guess as it pertains to where I am right now. So I DJ on Z100 in New York City, but prior to that, I was working just like as an overnight board operator for one of the other radio stations here in New York. And at the time, my goal was to DJ for that particular radio station. So like eventually, you know, making connections, talking to everybody there, being friends with everybody. It was like at one point, it seemed like it was gonna happen. So like, and I had 2 opportunities, 2. So at one point, like the morning show was like, hey, we want you to like do the mix. Can you make a sample? And they loved it. They take it to the big boss, and he like loses his mind. Like he can't believe that they're asking for me to do it. He's like, he's not qualified. There's plenty more qualified people to do it. This and that. So there I go, heartbroken on that one. I really thought it was gonna happen.
This was for DJing or?
Yeah, DJing on the
Okay.
radio. I'm not gonna say which radio station, but it's another radio station.
All right.
And then, so another one, literally probably like the next week, or it might have even been the same week, and I was like, all right, well, you know what, I've got 2 chances right now, so I should be good. Then I do a sample mix for that, for this other dude's radio show who's on that station. He comes back to me, he's like, you know, it's cool, man, it sounds really good. He's like, but like, we got this other guy who's a bigger name, like, you understand. So I was like, damn, so like, crushed twice in a week,
Yeah.
and then it was like, all right, well, like, here are the people in positions of power at the radio station that I envisioned myself. Like when I got into radio, that was my main goal, was to get on that radio station. And both of them just told me basically like, fuck you, we don't trust you. You know what I mean?
Like, you're not good enough.
Yeah, you're not good enough basically. So I'm like, now what the hell do I do? So whatever, I remember I was like, all right, you know what? I was going to Vegas that weekend, like randomly with a couple of buddies, and I was like, you know, I'm just gonna have fun out there. And while I'm out there, I get a phone call from one of like the bosses at the other radio station at Z100, the one I'm at now. And like I was at a pool party at the time, so I couldn't answer it. But when we leave there, I answer the phone, I call him back, and he's like, hey, you know, so and so's leaving the station. Like, would you possibly want to like make a sample mix and see about, you know, maybe having you take over? And I was like, whoa, this is like crazy. It's even bigger than the other opportunity I thought was coming my way. So of course, so like I can't sleep on the plane. I'm like freaking out that whole week, you know. And I do the sample mix, send it in, they love it, and then Z100 became my gig after that. And it was like out of this gigantic just like failure where I was just like, shit, like I just invested all of my time and like my goal setting into this happening, and I got to that point where now I was put in that position, and they were all just like, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
You know? But it all worked out in the end. Like that's like the beauty of it.
It's funny how it worked out so quickly too.
Yeah.
A lot of times when a failure happens like that, you like marinate on it. You're like, fuck, I can't let this happen again. Like
Yeah.
I'm putting in twice the work.
Yeah.
And for me, that's sort of how I always thought about it. Like it sucks, and you're like, damn, I can't believe that happened. Like this is what I worked for. But then after the pain eases up a little bit, it's like, all right, it's time to get back to work. Like fuck them. Like I'm gonna show them.
I think it also just gives you like this readjustment period where you're just kind of like, okay, so that didn't work. Now, like maybe I pivot a little bit, and like a lot of times when you allow yourself to pivot is when you end up finding what you're truly supposed to be doing, you know. And like I don't regret setting that goal, because that goal is what led me to having this. You know what I mean? So like that goal, having that goal at that particular radio station is even what put me in the position to now get on Z100. So like it all works out in the end. Like your failure will lead you to that success as long as you're still putting in the work.
Yeah. I feel like it's just part of life that these things are thrown in your way to make you quit.
Yeah.
It's like you gotta they're speed bumps, you just gotta get through them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, goal setting and all that stuff is amazing and it's absolutely necessary, but you also can't get too attached to those goals, you know, because life has another plan as well a lot of times, and sometimes it's beautiful that like your goal aligns perfectly with what life has set out for you, but sometimes like your goal is just meant to get you there, and then life is like giving you the option now to pivot to what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And that's like the beauty of it, you know, and I look at like playing in a band, what wasn't like the end game, it didn't turn out to where I was, but it also led me to DJing, and DJing led me to radio, you know what I mean? So like me chasing after and setting those goals led me down the path of actually like discovering, I think, my voice and who I wanted to become.
Yeah. I think that's really, it's fitting for where we are in the world right now too, because everyone that's a DJ in our world is out of a job, and it's like I mean, I'm in the game 10 years and we're doing 200 gigs a year or whatever, and it's like, I've questioned in my head, is it time to go to something else?
Yeah.
And normally you have a lead up period to transition to something, but in this situation with COVID-19, it's like, all right, you got to figure it out right now.
Yeah.
You know, and it's scary, but we were talking off air, I think it opens up opportunities for all of us to get creative and learn something new or pivot to something new that maybe that is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and it forces you to get out your comfort zone too.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to be like, you know, because I've been in that same position where I'm like, all right, I don't know if I want to keep DJing every weekend like this, man. It's a lot of gigs and a lot of like my time. I'm tired. But also it's like, well, when you get that email or that text like, hey, you want to do this gig for X amount of dollars, it's hard to turn down that money.
Yeah.
You know, so now with something like this where it's all been stripped away from us, we can't sit there in our comfort zone anymore. Now we're being forced to like figure out what we would do without DJing. You know, that really is what we end up wanting to do.
Yeah, and I think for the guys that are on unemployment, you know, the $600 extra money is ending soon, so it's like twice as scary that there's a deadline.
Yeah.
That you kind of got to figure out something to make money in the next month or so.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks and it's tough, and I feel for anybody that is in a position like that, that's nervous and scared about the money, you know. But you also, I think if you change your perspective where it's like, I need to make something happen now or never, you know, and that pushes you into finding things and finding opportunities that you might not have seen. It's like at one point it seemed crazy to me that I was gonna have to pay rent, you know what I mean? Like, but somehow now every month, like here I am, and it doesn't faze me anymore, you know?
Well, yeah, at least we're here doing this. This is a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
Right?
So it's like as human beings, we can adjust to anything. It's just how dedicated are we to adjusting and like forcing ourselves to find those opportunities, because they're out there. It's not going to be easy, but it will become normal to you once you know put yourself in that position.
And we've seen how DJs are adapting in our marketplace, and whether it be first it was the live streaming that everyone was doing a lot of, and now everyone's kind of like bouncing into their own lanes. And you see some lanes where people are really, really successful, and maybe that's going to be where they spend their time after this. Yeah. Even when DJing starts up again.
No, absolutely. It's a beautiful thing, man. I think, again, it's perspective. It's like, you know, you can look at it as like, damn, like my DJ days are coming to an end, or it's like, now I get to elevate into that next phase of my life, you know, and find that next thing that I want to do, you know. So it's, again, it's all perspective how you want to look at it.
Yeah. So you've like you said, you've worn a bunch of hats in the music industry. This is a two-part question. The first would be, I'm sure you've gotten like really bad advice. What's some really bad advice that you've gotten from someone in the industry that is successful?
Some really bad advice. I think you get a lot of people that try to make you change to what the norm is. And that's sort of the thing. I can't remember like one specific line, but I know for me, when I walked into like the radio station, especially this is probably, I don't know, 5 years ago maybe, people being on camera in the radio station wasn't as much of a normal thing. So like I walked in there and coming from like being in a band and then DJing and things like that, like, dude, I would go there from working midnight to 6 a.m. by myself. I'd be dressed up as if I was going to the club. You know what I mean? Like hair done, everything. Like I put in the effort. And just so like I always treated it a little bit different. And I remember people being like, you know, nobody's gonna see you. It's just radio. And then it's like now you fast forward to what it is now, and it's like, bro, you always got to be on. Like the digital aspect of it is important. Your brand is important. The way you look and present yourself is important. And also, I think when it comes to even just radio, I know when I used to make like air checks and like try and like get jobs in radio, they would always be like, oh, you just don't sound too, you know, energetic enough. You got to put some energy in it. And the reality of it is, though, now I get complimented by the fact that I have a laid back style when I interview people or when I talk to people. So it's like, I thank God I didn't listen to them, because that's an old school mentality.
That, like,
of
stereotypical radio
like, oh,
voice.
Z100, New York City, like being all like, you know, fake, you know, happy and fake excited. And it's like people see through that now. Like the world doesn't want to see that fake bullshit. They want people to talk to them the way they speak. And the fact that I stayed true to that and didn't listen to when people told me to like put on some fake voice, like now it's proving to be like, you know, one of my like, I guess, you know, the best blessings and something that people like recognize about me when they see me do content. It's like, wow, he has like a very different approach to than I would see like a normal radio person doing an interview.
So you sort of answered my question, but if you were to give advice to someone who either wants to be in the music industry, on the radio, or a DJ, what would a piece of advice be?
Man, I think you got to be very, very self-aware. And I listen to a lot of Gary Vee stuff, and he talks about this a lot, like self-awareness. But I think it's just being self-aware as to like what your strong suits are, and that'll guide you towards not trying to be anybody else. And also, allow you to sort of have this kind of filter when it comes to the advice that you get.
Yeah.
Because you know who you are, and you know if somebody's telling you to be something else, it's just like that doesn't align with who you are, you know.
It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who's younger.
Yep. Yeah, you see your examples, you see your heroes, and you try to emulate it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the idea is that you can't try to copy them. You have to try to take what it is that you like about them, and then how do you make it your own?
Yeah.
That's what you have to do, and then it's the self-awareness, because there are also people who still going down this path of maybe being a personality, but it's like that's just not your strong suit. You know what I mean? You're just not like a very conversational person. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You're like an amazing person behind the scenes at production and all these different things. Far better than I am at this stuff, but you're still chasing the wrong alley. And that's like that comes with being self-aware.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of what I would say with all that kind of stuff. Like try to make yourself as self-aware as possible, so that you also can now have that filter of knowing what advice is good advice and what advice is bad advice.
No, I think that's like a gem, especially when you think about first understanding like who you are, what you want to do, and then figuring out how your skills can get you to where you want to go.
Absolutely.
And I think what you said about finding people that you either look up to or you can take bits and pieces from,
right,
but you take the things that they're really successful at and you tailor it to what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
And if you take bits and pieces from a number of different people, then you create your own style and lane, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's like if you look at any of the greatest musicians and things like that, it's like they weren't emulating, 100% the person they looked up to. They took some of their favorite things about that person and then like made it their own, and now it became this amazing thing. And that's what you have to do. That's like true artistry.
Yeah, and I think you brought up musicians. I think it's the same thing for producers. And there's the popular sound, and if you try to chase the popular sound every couple years, you're never going to create your own sound. You're just going to try to blend into whatever's popular.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can create a career like that.
Nah, you might get lucky once or twice, but
right,
you're not going to have like a tangible career that continues to blossom and like that, is steady. It's going to be a one and done kind of thing.
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit about you transitioning and doing different things. So in the last couple weeks, you started something brand new, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about that, and is this something that you've been wanting to do, and why did you start it?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess like it was a result of the quarantine, basically. It started out as like an IG live I would do daily. I was calling it Quarantine Afternoon. And I just made like a fake daytime talk show via IG. And it was cool. I just did it every day, and it was just like something that kept me sane. And the more I did it, the more I felt comfortable. It started feeling really natural. It started feeling really invigorating. I started building like a little bit of a community within it. And it just sort of like kind of clicked in my head, because to be honest, like I would say at the beginning of this year, maybe towards the end of this last year, I started feeling like I was hitting my ceiling in my current roles and my current positions. So I was definitely looking for like what's next,
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like I found it. It's weird to say something as dumb as an IG live, but like I kind of think I feel like I found it. I've always had an interest in hosting, and I maybe thought I was going to be within radio or whatever, and it could still be, but doing it in this manner, I kind of took on like a talk show personality of a television show, and it really like I fuck with it. I love it,
Yeah.
So now as we kind of started moving out of this quarantine, stage of the country, I kind of started figuring out, okay, how can I actually like scale this and make it a real thing? So I kind of got my guy EJ, who does all my creative stuff, and we put our heads together, like how can we truly do this? And we built like a fake little set in the dining room of my apartment, and like it looks cool. And now it airs every week on the Breakfast Club's YouTube channel, and we like transitioned it into being like a digital late night show. And I love it, man. I've always been a big fan of like late night shows and that kind of stuff, and I kind of feel like, the more I do it, I'm like, man, this is my calling. Like I really feel like I'm hitting upon things in a really unique way. I love doing interviews, I always have, and I love the perspective I get out of people. I think it is kind of different than what most people who interview a lot of these artists ask them. So like to me, it's just something cool. It just feels natural, man. It feels like when I started DJing a lot, I'm like, I feel that again. You know what I mean? It feels like, wow, you just fell into something that like you're gonna be doing for a while. Yeah,
you gotta go with your gut, right? Your gut a lot of times will tell you if something's right or wrong, and if it feels right to you, it probably is right.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think it's also just like it almost goes full circle to what we were talking about when we first started this, where now I have a voice, and I'm using it to speak out on behalf of other people.
Yeah.
Especially in the world that we live in right now, there are so many things going on, and it's so necessary to have those voices. And on top of that, it allows me now to have a platform to pull other people up, I was doing open mics on the Quarantine Afternoon type of thing, and I was giving people a platform to have their music heard. And now You know, this last show I just recorded, like an artist that I had met on Instagram, he made an amazing record, like inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement, and I'm putting it in the show. So now, like, he has a music video that's gonna get played on the Breakfast Club's YouTube channel with 4 million subscribers. You know what I mean? And like, all that stuff is amazing, and like, that is what it's all about. And like, that's the idea of growth and like pushing yourself to be at a high level, that now you can like have your own platform to once again help people out, you know?
Yeah. It's full circle.
Full circle,
See what
man.
you did there.
You know, I do a little something every once in a while.
He might be a pro, you know? I think what's cool about the show that you're doing now is it's not just specifically about music.
Yeah.
It takes a bigger approach to what's going on in the world and, you know, politics and race and not just music. So I think that's really cool, and, you know, being able to give people a voice.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the thing is, those things have always been important. The unfortunate part about it is the people who are speaking on those things didn't look like you and I, you know what I mean? They didn't talk like us, you know? So it's important now, and it's a beautiful space that we're in right now. It's one of the big things I learned from the Breakfast Club is that, you know, you can still be true to yourself and speak on those things. And once you start doing that, you start opening now other people's minds up to being open to learning about really important shit like politics, you know what I mean? And like, now people are getting educated on it, and again, it goes back to like me not changing my voice for anybody, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna speak the way I speak, I'm gonna curse, I'm gonna do whatever it is, but I'm talking about real stuff, and I'm educating people who might not know, and people are also educating me, and it's important that, like, you know, to do that work, and dude, there's no better feeling than like doing something that is elevating yourself, you know, to be on the level you see yourself being, but also is helping people and is contributing to the good in the world, you know what I mean? So like, to me now, I'm just like, wow, it's like hitting on everything, you know? I think as a DJ, it's amazing, and like, you're helping people have a good time, but it also is like a very big ego stroking kind of thing, you know? And so is being a musician and making music and doing anything like that. So like, it's cool to be able to still have that kind of stuff that, like, you know, it still makes you feel good about yourself, but then also like is there to help other people. I don't know, it's cool.
It's funny, like stroking our egos. Like, we all have egos, right?
Yeah, of course.
And in the music world, I feel like it's 10x.
Yeah.
So there's a way to do that and not come off like a dick.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with like wanting to be recognized for your gifts and wanting to be recognized for the things that you enjoy doing. It's when that want and need to be recognized now comes at the expense of other people when it's wrong, you know? So it's being able to find that balance of like, you know, having that good feeling of being recognized, but then also like being able to feel good because you know you're doing good in the world as well, you know? And that's kind of the balance of it all, which is a beautiful thing. All
right, so working at the Breakfast Club and in other roles that you've had, you had mentioned kind of like being around people that have shown you how to be successful, and what's it like being in the room and learning from people that you once looked up to?
It's wild, to be honest. It's crazy. You can't really like put it into words. I think it took me a full year of being around them to like let my guard down and really showcase my personality to them, because it is daunting, man. It's like really strange to be sitting there next to them. It's very out of body. But I think, you know, seeing the way that they operate, the way that they think, man, it's like the best college I could have ever gotten that I'm actually getting paid to be at, you know? And it's wild. I mean, even just, I think for me also, it's like to see how they are as human beings and how they live as human beings, and then how they conduct themselves being super successful. I'm able to just recognize how I want to move in this world, you know? And they're not perfect, and there's things I would like to emulate and things that I wouldn't, and little tidbits I take from one person but not the other. And that's the beauty of being around three incredibly successful people like that. But I think it's just taught me how to be the type of person I really want to be and dive into that, you know, from, you know, envy, you know, and his family life and the way he's able to balance that out with his insane work ethic, but still always being there for every single aspect of his family's life. Like, that's super inspiring, and that's something I take away of how I want to live my life, you know?
He's super cool too.
Yeah, no, dude.
Like regular, super cool guy.
Very down to earth, very cool dude, like super, you know, and that's the thing, it's like self-awareness. He plays his role on that show. Like, he doesn't get the same star power that Charlemagne has, but when he's not there on the show, you notice it, because he's the quarterback. He's the guy, like, you don't recognize unless you're really paying attention, but he's keeping everything on the tracks. He's keeping keeping the car on the road. And then, somebody like Charlemagne being unapologetically himself. He'll go on CNN with a 5 o'clock shadow and like his hat all messed up and his beard all out. But nobody questions it because he's like speaking some real shit.
Right.
So like, to me, I look at that, I'm like, dude, like that's somebody doubling down on themselves and finding success in it. And that's why people relate to him, And then, Angela Yee, using her voices for a cause. She's very outspoken about, women and things like that. And that for me is like, okay, and to be honest, collectively as a whole, seeing the pride they have in wanting to uplift the African American community, I also look to myself and like, okay, well, I also have responsibility when it comes to the Latin community and like making sure there's a space for them within this whole thing, So I don't know, man, I can go on for days just like all the different things that I kind of learn from them and the different takeaways, it's just wild.
I think having an opportunity to be in the room with those people, even, when you first started, for me, that's the best way that I can learn.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even realize that you're learning from people when you're just there. But down the line, you're like, wow, I am kind of doing what Envy's doing or what Charlemagne was doing in this situation.
Yeah.
And it's just a great opportunity when you're around these super successful, hardworking people. You pick up on their habits.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Dude, I would do interviews and I would be like, whoa. After the interview, I'd be like, that was like a Breakfast Club like question that I did. You know what I mean? Or like the way I went about it, I was like, damn, that was super picked up from one of their tactics that they do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's and you know what, and that's like the idea of a mentor. Why do people talk about mentorship being so important? It's because you get to learn from people who have done it, and like, and you get whether you realize that you're picking up on it. Like if I had an off night when I was younger and I would go to like the club on a Friday or Saturday and I would see somebody DJ, I would definitely be like, oh wow, that's like a cool idea, and it would inspire me to do something. And it's the same exact way. You can look at that when it comes to your finances. You can look at it when it comes to the way you conduct your business, your social media, whatever it is. Like when you're around people, you start picking up on things, and you can start like adjusting it to like same thing we were talking about, where you take pieces of other people's success and now create it and make it your own. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I think the saying that you are, who the five closest people around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's so true. So, you have to check yourself and see who you're associating with, who you're spending a lot of time with, and then think about it and you realize like, oh, I'm doing that one thing that my boy was doing in this situation, or I don't know. I think having a mentor is extremely important.
Yeah.
And when I started in this world, I don't know, you kind of pick them up, but I didn't really have somebody to help me out. So we talked about doing things selfishly for ourselves.
Yeah.
Get Down for me is selfish in a way because I'm helping the younger DJs learn how to navigate the business and the industry because it's really hard.
Absolutely.
It's not an easy business to be in. And so selfishly for me, I love that aspect of it because I didn't have that as much. And I think it just makes me feel good. So
yeah, I mean that's the beauty of it though. When we talk about all that stuff, like you're now doing something that still gives you that like feeds your ego, makes you feel good about yourself. But in doing so, exactly, it's still helping somebody else out now. So it literally hits on everything, man. And that's why you guys are having success with this, because you're hitting that beautiful combination.
Yeah. What is a purchase under $100 that has like changed your life in the last 6 months?
It's probably, I brought like a really shitty DJ controller like when I was first kind of starting it, and that's what like taught me the tech side of like hooking up the laptop and all that kind of, and organizing crates and things like that for like this new age of DJing. So that was probably like the most beneficial $100 I've ever spent.
Nice. And if you were to have a billboard that was going to be in like the Lincoln Tunnel, what would the billboard say?
I think I gotta go back to like what I was saying before. Like it doesn't have to be lonely at the top. That's what I'm living by.
I love that. All right, so we're gonna leave you with that. It doesn't have to be lonely at the top. Remember that. My man Dramos, I'm Cream. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation I just had with Dramos. We didn't keep it to just music and nightlife. We talked about the things that make him successful. So I hope this conversation helped you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out the next episode of Get Down With It.